have a little bit of housekeeping to do before we get into today's topic with the Bible. But I want you to listen carefully to this because this does require due dates when we have things done. This is something you have to do in order for you to be confirmed. Okay? Well, the first thing we're going to talk about is confirmation sponsors, or maybe you've called them godparents. But I want to explain to you what they are and what are the requirements. Maybe you've already chosen someone, but maybe you haven't. But maybe after you listen to this, you might have to think twice, okay? So I just want to give you the rundown on it. So what is a sponsor or a confirmation godparent? We call it sponsors. A sponsor is a person that's chosen by your candidate, all right, for confirmation, who is an example and mentor for the candidate in the practice and the living of the faith. That's really important, kids, because a lot of times we look at the sponsor for confirmation as the person who shows up on confirmation day and their job is done after confirmation. But that's not what a sponsor is supposed to be. It's supposed to be an ongoing relationship, not only on confirmation day, but afterwards. Their role is to support the candidate in their preparation for the sacrament of confirmation. So now, once you choose them, they're supposed to be kind of walking this with you. So if you have questions after we get together, or as you're getting ready for the sacrament, that person would be the one to go to besides your parents. So it's kind of like an extra parent in the faith. The sponsor is generally needs to be at the confirmation mass, but sometimes it doesn't happen. So they can have a stand-in. So if you want someone to be a sponsor for you for confirmation, and you say, wow, they're in the service or something, or they're out of town that month, but I really like them to be the sponsor, they can still be a sponsor, okay? And you just get a stand-in. It's more important not the day of confirmation, but it's afterwards. Capiche? Okay. Here are the requirements. This is very important because not everyone qualifies to be a sponsor. They must be a Catholic. They must be a Catholic. As a Catholic, that means a practicing Catholic goes to church and belongs to a parish. We have a lot of Catholics that are in name only. That's not what a sponsor is. You want to have someone who's going to support you in your faith journey. So if they're struggling with their own, that doesn't make sense, does it? To have someone who, it's a nice person, but they don't go to church. Well, that makes no sense because they're representing the church as well. Must be at least 16 years old. Okay? Must be confirmed. And if they're married, they have to be married in church because that's a sacrament. And that's something we'll talk about with you guys later on. Not that you're planning on getting married soon, but today the world is kind of saying you can go and get married on a beach, jumping out of a plane, jumping off a bridge, with a parachute, I hope. The Catholic Church, of which you are a member and of which you are becoming a full member through confirmation, says, that's a sacrament. And so when you get married in the sacrament of holy matrimony, okay? So it's the same thing for your sponsors. So if your sponsors, nice guy, nice woman, say, they're great, nice people, get married in church. I don't believe in that stuff. Then they disqualify themselves as a sponsor because they're still working through their understanding of the faith. Sponsor can be either a man or a woman. The tradition was you had a woman for the ladies, for the girls, a man for the boys. It doesn't have to be that anymore. So you guys could have a woman and you ladies could have a man sponsor you, okay? And that's all going to be printed out and handed to you. The sponsor cannot be a candidate's parent, though, because they already have a special relationship with you. Probably half of you wouldn't want your parents anyhow, but that's beside the point, okay? So that is the role of a sponsor. Now I'm going to give these to you. Should I give them to you now? Can I give them to you and you just put them away so that...
I can't promise you I won't lose it.
Yeah, I know. But wait. If you do, by tomorrow, this will also be on the website, on the collaborative website, okay?
Got it. Give it to me.
So
She
if
won't lose it.
so that's why we always do. Now at the top of it, I'd like you to see what it says. It is due, listen please, it is due December 15th. That's not a suggestion. I need those.
Can I give it in before?
I'd give you an extra piece of pizza for that. Because, Harry?
So it can't, you said it can't be a candidate's parents. It can't do Aiden's parents.
Try that again. I'm sorry, I'm missing you.
You have Aiden's parents as one.
Yeah, it can be your parents. I'm going to do that, yeah, okay. That means you're even going to be closer related. That's scary, huh?
Can I do her dad?
Yeah, I would think so. I think you could. You know, so again, as long as they meet those, let me clarify that because I guess Harry didn't quite get it, but I'm not sure if it can't be a parent, your parent. It can be another parent, but it can't be your parent.
Oh, I thought you meant like.
Never mind, Harry. Never mind, Harry. Okay. That date, December 15th, is not a suggestion. I need those in before Christmas because I have to submit all that information to the bishop to approve your confirmation. So I got to get all these things lined up. Steps for choosing a sponsor. This is what, if you haven't thought about a sponsor yet. Think of a few people that might fit that description and meet those requirements. Write down the names. Discuss the names with your parents. Go to your parents and say, I have 3 names that I'm thinking about for confirmation for a sponsor. What do you think? Make sure you show them the requirements, though, because sometimes they don't know the requirements. Okay? Pray with those names. Yes?
Are the people you choose for your sponsor allowed to be not married?
Yes, of course. Yeah, they can be single. Pray with those names. Remember what Deacon Bill said upstairs. Pray always. To make a good choice, I know I pray very often to make good choices. So pray, and then make your choice, and then ask the sponsor. Make sure they're aware of the requirements, because you might not realize something in their life. Like you might say, you choose them, and they say, oh, I haven't been confirmed. So they need to see that list. Okay? They have to be confirmed, obviously, because if they haven't been confirmed, then how can they stand there representing you for confirmation if they themselves haven't been confirmed, okay? The next thing, this is all work we got to do for confirmation. So sponsor, any questions about sponsors? Nope. Confirmation name. Maybe you've heard of this if you've had a sibling, brother or sister that had to, why do I need a new name? This isn't legal. This isn't going to go like on your driver's license or anything unless you want to change your name. It's been a tradition in the church that a candidate, someone prepared for confirmation, chooses another name that will be used during the confirmation. We can go into the Bible, which I invite you to do today at some point, and there have been name changes given by Jesus to some of his followers. All right? Simon was given the name Peter. Saul was given the name Paul. And we know in our modern time that when a pope becomes a pope, he changes his name because he takes on a whole new role. So it's not the same as you becoming a pope, but in a sense, when you get confirmed, you're taking on a new kind of image. You're a member of Christ, fully member of Christ Church, huh? Because Petros means rock. So he said to Simon, he said, Simon, your name is now going to be Rock, because he built his church on him. So like you build a church, get it? Yeah. So there's a lot of choices. A lot of choices. So what name do I choose? It has to be a name of a saint or a biblical figure. Think of it this way, a spiritual hero. Someone who will inspire you to lead a holy life. Someone that will intercede, that you will turn to in your prayers and say, pray for me. There's a lot of great choices out there because there's thousands of saints. And now you've got Google. So you just say, gee, what I sometimes recommend to people, here's a couple, but not to use these, but this is a couple of examples. Think about your gifts, think about who you are, and then go into Google search or whatever and say, what type of saint loved animals? St. Francis is going to pop up. Excuse me? Huh?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Brain just-
Go
Is
ahead.
that why it's called St. Luke's Hospital? Because it says aspired to work in medical field?
Exactly. St. Luke's Hospital in New Beige, right? Very smart. Okay? St. Luke's. So say if you want to be a doctor or a nurse someday, St. Luke might be a good choice to intercede for you as you make that decision. Sebastian's a popular one for athletes. Okay? So, but there's a lot more. Be creative. Be creative. But they're there. Can I use my own name? If it's a saint's name or a biblical figure, you can. You can use your own name or you can use your middle name. But I want you to learn about that person. How to choose my confirmation name. Give it some thought. Don't just pick it out of a hat or not pick what your friend is picking. Do some research. Simple enough in your day today. You just Google the name and say, tell me about this saint. Pray always. Choose the name. And then what you're going to do on this piece of paper that I'm going to give you that you're going to lose is this piece of paper. On the back of it, or I assume you probably want to do it on computer, is just 2-3 paragraphs. Just tell me a little bit about the saint, and then more importantly, what I want to hear is, is why you chose that saint. Okay? Did you hear what I said? A little bit about the saint, but I want to know why you chose that name. Yes? Paragraphs are due.
Are they all due on the same day?
Same day, I think. Let me see. I forget now. I'm old. What's it say on the top? Due date. Yeah, same. So that's due December 15th as well. That's due December. What were you saying? Someone asking me? Again. Okay. Yeah, never mind. That's all right. Okay? Any questions about that? So those 2 pieces of paper I need back by the 15th. Please don't have me have to go and look for that. Okay? Take a break for a minute. I'm going to cue up something. So today, we're going to talk briefly about the Bible. Now, as we learn a little bit more about the Bible today, you're going to say, oh, he's cheap. He only gave me half a Bible, which I did. I only gave you the New Testament.
How dare you?
How dare me? And I apologize to all the biblical writers of the Old Testament. I actually, a couple of years ago, had a group of parents in, and I gave them about 4 or 5 different Bibles to choose from. And they all kind of said, I said, you got kids, you know what? And they all said, we like this one. So we went with it. But as Father Ryan can show you, there are many different types of Bibles. Father Ryan, show us the many different types of Bibles.
You have a small Bible,
Small Bible.
Bible, Jerusalem Bible, slightly different in how they translate them from the original languages. This is a larger version of the New Testament, so it has like a lot of comments and explanations of different parts of it. So it has like nice footnotes that explain things, or like maps of what's going on in the particular reading that you're doing. So a lot of different, even pocket-sized Bibles that you can. But now you can just get it on your phone anyway. So
Right.
not many people would have pocket Bibles anymore.
Yeah, you can get the full Bible on your phone. I have it on my phone. You have it on your phone, Ryan?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it on my phone.
I'm pretty sure, well, no, I have a miniature.
Excuse me, just a little louder, Harry. I'm
I
old.
have like this at home. But
Yeah.
It's like a pocket-sized Bible.
Yeah.
It's just the New Testament.
Yeah, and you're going to find that there's different translations, like Father Ryan said. So we're going to be using this one in our study, but there's many other ones. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can get this going, and why don't we listen to this? It's only for a couple of minutes. Can you hear all right? A little low.
Albert Einstein said, I want to know the thoughts of God. The rest are details. The Bible is not just another book. It's the Word of God. You've probably heard that a lot, but I mean, what does that really mean? For one thing, words have value based on who speaks them. If you know someone and that person's always telling lies, then you probably discount what that person has to say to you because you know from experience that that person's got the habit of lying. Some people's words should be discounted. But this here, the Bible, the Word of God, is not to be discounted. God should be taken at His word. The Bible should be taken seriously. You see, your happiness in this life and the next life depends in large part on how seriously you take the Word of God. Here's the mysterious thing about the Bible. It has the power to transform our lives. That's why so many people don't read it. Seriously, that's the reason. You see, God wants to transform you. And God wants to transform your life. Too often, when we pray for tweaking. We want God to tweak this and tweak that. We say, dear God, please tweak this, and dear God, please tweak that. And we wonder why our prayers don't get answered. The reason's really simple. It's because God's not in the business of tweaking. God's in the business of transformation. He wants to turn your life upside down, which as it turns out will be right side up. He wants to transform the way you think about yourself. He wants to transform the way you think about relationships. He wants to transform the way you think about money and career. He wants to transform the way you think about the world and the culture. If you want to see something incredible, start praying for transformation. Ask God to transform you and your life. Most people have never prayed a prayer of transformation. The truth is, your happiness depends upon discovering God's will for your life, and the Bible can help you with that. But too often, we're not interested in discovering the will of God. Usually, we're more interested in my will be done than thy will be done. Think about it. When was the last time you actively sought out God's will for your life in a situation? The Bible leads us to God's mysterious and fabulous plan for our lives. And that is always transformational. This is not just another book.
Okay, so that's just a very brief introduction about what the Bible is. It really puts it, what Matt Kelly is saying, is this really puts this in a very different place than any other book you've ever read. You might have your favorite books, or I don't know, do you read books anymore? I don't know, but you still read books? Okay. So you might have your favorite book, and it might have for different reasons, but this book can really and truly, and I mean this very seriously, kids, and that's why I wanted you to have one, particularly the New Testament, is it can transform you. It can change your mind. It can change your heart if you approach it. Because as we say at Mass, after we read a part from the Bible, what do we say? The word of the Lord. And we say, thanks be to God. So it is God's word. But really, what is the Bible? First of all, we believe that the Bible has been given to us through God, through God's revelation. See, God, where are we getting all these things about God, that we can talk about upstairs in church, or the church can talk about God? What authority do we have to talk about God? Well, we do have a certain authority, because there are two things that God gave us to reveal: revelation, divine means God, and revelation, what he revealed to us. So we're not just making this crap up. This isn't just like, well, that's what someone thought. We're getting everything that we teach as a church comes from two sources, okay? One of them is Scripture, the Bible, but also tradition, what is handed on to us from the early apostles. Now, I know some of you are involved, and your parents and families are involved with other religions. This is what separates us, is many other religions believe the only way God reveals himself to us is through the Bible. Now, they're half right. We're not saying that's wrong. We believe that God reveals himself through the Bible, through his sacred word. So what is in this? This word is truth, because it's from God. And so we believe, just like many other religions, Christian religions, that's our common ground, is our belief that God reveals himself to us in the Bible. Where the Catholic Church moves in a little different direction than many other Christian denominations is what is called tradition. And what tradition is the early way the church was formed. So let me use as an example, and maybe, Ryan, you can think of another one or two. Sacraments. 7 sacraments in the church. You knew that, right? Just say yes. Yeah. Okay. So there's 7 sacraments in the church. Now, someone who only believes that God tells us through the Bible and doesn't believe in this says, where does it say in the Bible that there are 7 sacraments? Nowhere. Each of the sacraments has a root in the Bible, and you can go to the Bible and see about baptism, and you can even see kind of what we're calling confirmation. But if you go into the Bible and say, where's confirmation? You're not going to see that, because that has been a development revealed to us by God in the earliest days of the church. And that's where that information is we get from it. The formation of the early church with a leader, a head, Petros, rock. Where in the Bible does it say a church should have a pope? Nowhere. But if you look in the early church, St. Peter was chosen above all the other apostles with a special role. Let me just finish this. A special role. And so, church, when we say pope and bishops and priests, there's roots always in the Bible, but it's not going to be as clearly defined. So some religions, not knocking them, just saying some religions say if it isn't in the Bible, it's man-made. And what we say is the Bible is very important, but some of the early tradition of the church is also revealed to us. God was forming that church through the Holy Spirit, which we're going to talk a lot more about as we get to confirmation. Okay? Does that make sense to you? Do you have any question, Harry?
I don't really go. Just yeah, I guess that's a question. So do we like basically break down the Bible kind of like into parts,
Yes.
like deciphering it more than just reading it?
Yes. Because if you read the Bible from chapter 1, Genesis, the Old Testament, to the last chapter in the book of Revelation, I doubt you'll ever get through it. Some people do, but that's a lot. Hold up that Jerusalem Bible. Look at that thing. Man. And it's the Old Testament, as great as it is, has language and images that are very difficult to plow through. They're beautiful, but they're difficult to plow through. And sometimes people start with the Old Testament and they kind of like, oh, I can't do this. And they give up long before they hit the New Testament. I'm not denying the importance of the Old Testament, but that's why I want you, if you're going to be reading the Bible, which I hope you will, because now you have your own, I'd like you to start with the New Testament, because I think it's a lot easier to kind of work through. So what is it? It's a collection or library of books from writers before Jesus' time, before he was on the earth, to after Jesus' time. So this book is like a small library. And what do I mean about a small library? Well, some libraries have poetry books. Some libraries have history books. Some libraries have stories about heroes. Some books are about many different subjects. You have to go to the card. Do you use card catalogs anymore? You don't do that, do you? I don't know how you. Do you ever use libraries anymore? Mm-hmm. Okay. But I might be dating myself. But years ago, when I was a lad, you'd have to go to a library to get a book. You couldn't go to Google. There was no Google because there was no internet. And hard to believe, but you would go, and so you walk into a library and there's thousands of books. Where do I begin to look? You have to go to a card catalog. And if you wanted books about sports, you wanted books about poetry. So the Bible is all these different types of books. We call these books inspired, which means that God used the people who wrote these books to communicate his message to us. So when someone says, did God write the Bible? No. Yes and no. What? God didn't write it down and throw it down from heaven and say, here's the Bible. No, but he inspired people to write the Bible. So he had a hand in it, we believe, and all Christian and the Jewish religion as well, all believe that God inspired the writers of the Bible. Okay? The Old Testament, which is important but a little more difficult to get through, speaks about God among his people from creation. We all know the book of Genesis. God created the earth. Deacon Bill was talking about that today. It's the story of the calling of the Jewish people, the chosen people, they were called. In it are teachings of the Jewish faith, their prayers and worship, the Psalms, which you say, well, we're not Jewish. Why do we need to know that? We sang the Psalm today. It's from the Old Testament. The first reading. Remember that reading? The guy had to keep his hands up to pray when he put his hands down. That didn't come from the New Testament. That came all from the Jewish faith, because our faith is built on the Jewish faith. Okay? And the stories of the prophets. As we get close to Christmas now, we're going to read from the prophet Isaiah. And Isaiah predicted years before Jesus appeared on the scene that the Messiah was going to come. So these Jewish people have been waiting for the Messiah. The difference between Christians and Jewish people is the Jewish people still are waiting. Christians believe that Messiah is the person of Jesus Christ. So up to a certain point, we agree right across the boards, but then when it comes to is Jesus the Messiah is a different story. Okay, after Jesus, or all those books in the Old Testament were written before Jesus was on the scene, on the earth. All about Jesus was written after he returned to heaven, okay, at the ascension. That is called the New Testament. The New Testament, best way to learn it, it's the life and story and the teachings of Jesus Christ. So if you want to know, and that's why I want you to go to the New Testament. Not that the Old Testament is wrong or bad, but I want you to go right to the New Testament because we are Christians and we need to build a relationship with Christ. And to build a relationship with Christ, we need to know about him. And we need to know what he teaches and what he says and what he did and what happened to him. So that's key. That's the first 4 books of the New Testament, which are called the Gospels. But wait, there's more. The formation of the early church is another book after the 4 Gospels, and it's called the Acts of the Apostles. Now, one thing to just go back for a second to the Gospels, you're going to see a lot of stories in the Gospels, each Gospel, that are the same. So you say, well, why do we have 4 Gospels? Because it was 4 different people who looked at the same thing from a little different angle. And they were writing for different people. And this was like 30, 40 years after Jesus. And so all the teachings, all the stories about Jesus, all the teachings about Jesus, how did they last for 30, 40 years, do you think? They weren't written down. They shared it with one another. Remember when Jesus said this? Remember the time when he was on that mountain? Remember when he was with Mary? Remember what Mary said? And at some point, they said, hey, we better write this stuff down. And that's what the Gospels were. They were written down what had been handed on by word of mouth. So as I say, then in the Acts of the Apostles, we see how the early church was formed. And we're going to drill into that a little bit because that has a lot to do with the sending of the Holy Spirit. And then the spread of the faith continued after the early church was formed by going out into the world. St. Paul went out into the world and went out to Rome. So there's a whole letter that he wrote to the people of Rome. And he went to Philippi, another town, and we see his letters. So by looking at all this, the Gospels, the formation of the early church, and how the message of Christ was spread, we begin to learn about the Bible, and particularly about the New Testament. So this is what we need to do now. Now you have a Bible. Now, how do you use it? Now, some of you might know how to use it, but it's okay if you don't, because maybe no one taught you. So we're teaching you today. So what you're going to see is this. That's a Bible citation. All right? John 3:16 to 17. This is what it means. John is the name of the book. The next thing is the chapter. The next thing is the verses. See, here's the problem. If I say to you, okay, let's look in the book on page 179, all of us will be fine. But poor Father Ryan, 179, is going to be way in the Old Testament, because if they print it differently, it's going to be on a different page. So rather than saying, let's turn in our book to 179, I'm going to ask you to find John 3, 16, 17. First one who finds it, raise your hand. Go. You found it? You're already looking? Good. What is it?
For God,
Read it nice and loud, Harry. You're right. You're right. For God so.
for God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever
Believes. It's all right. Keep looking because I want all of you to find it.
These are grumblers,
Nope. Nope. Because, first of all, that's Jude. Okay? So it's one of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then you'll see a chapter. See chapter 2? So you don't want chapter 2, you want chapter 3. And then see these numbers? Okay? There it is. Please tell me if you can't find it because this is the whole idea to learn how to use the Bible. It's okay.
69. I found it. I'm proud of myself.
Perfect. You got it? Perfect. You guys got it? You people got it? Do you have it? Now, where you get, sometimes you can get a little confused because there's two books that are named John. One is the Gospel, and then towards the end is a letter of John. This is what you also see. Sometimes you'll see a citation. Most of the time you'll see a citation like this. Sometimes you see it like this with a number before it. That means it's Paul's letter to Timothy, his first letter to Timothy, because he wrote 2. 2 or 3? 2, right, Ryan? You write 2 or 3? 2. Okay? So 2 letters to Timothy. So it's the first letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 12. Someone find that and read it? You should all look for it. That's how you practice. Timothy. Sometimes you have to go to the front of the book and look at the chapters. Go.
It says starts with let now.
Yep.
Let no one despise your youth, but set the believers an example in speech and conduct, in love and faith, in purity.
Okay. So that's it. Easy to use, right? Okay. Now, yes,
Why did I find something totally different?
because you're probably in the,
Chapter 4 and then 14.
yeah, he just said that.
Oh.
Did he? Wait a minute. He was mumbling. Yeah, right here. Here it is. Let no one despise you. See the
Oh, I thought
12?
we-
So you see the little verse, the little number? Okay, this is what we're going to do in the next 15 minutes. Would you mind taking the first one? Would you mind taking the second one? And Father, I want all of you to come and gather around Father Ryan. So come on, come on. You want the third one? Or you want salt and light? Sure. Whatever you want. You guys decide. Wait a minute. Here's what I need you to do, though. I put a little shh, 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 shh. We only have 15 minutes. What I need you to do is in 15 minutes, I want you to read it. First of all, find it. Read it to yourself. Discuss it. And if you were Father Ryan or myself, and you had to preach next week on that passage, what would you say? This is what you do. What's the message that Jesus is trying to say? What do you think Jesus is telling us today in that story? And what I'm saying is prepare a homily. That's what we do. We have to do that every day. We have to read a passage from the Bible And we have to say, what has this got to do with me today? It's your job now to do it. Go ahead. 15 minutes.